Our next presenter is Ms. Marwa Mohammed Masood, and she is an assistant professor of English at United International University in Bangladesh. Marwa Mohammed Masood has been teaching English for 5 years. Her specialty interests lie primarily in the interests of ICT and TESOL, teacher education and development, critical thinking, and what she'll refer to as CDP, critical digital pedagogy. So please welcome Ms. Masood. She's going to be talking today about critical digital pedagogy in EFL classrooms. Actually, tonight's theme from both presenters is going to be about enhancing learner autonomy, meaning this is another maxim from my hero, Bronson Alcott: teach your students to teach themselves. This is, I think, what our presenters are going to be going for tonight in very different and very interesting ways. So please give your attention. By the way, in this next presentation, I just want to add, take note of some of the research data that Ms. Masood will present. Ms. Masood will present. It's really interesting how they collected data on their own processes in class. I really admire this. So again, I'm going to turn the screen over to Ms. Marwa Mohammed Masood.
Thank you so much, Bruce. Thank you for the introduction. It's very kind of you to talk so nicely about my presentation. So good evening, everyone. This is Marwa Mohammed Masood, and as Bruce has already introduced me, I am teaching English for almost 5 years now. At present, I'm teaching at United International University, Bangladesh. And it has been a wonderful experience so far. Although it's not a very long time that I have been teaching for, but I think I have been lucky because I got the opportunity of looking at English language learning and teaching from different perspectives and in different lights. So that's a plus. So let me share my screen with you. All right, I hope everyone can see my screen. So today my topic is going to be about, as Bruce already said, it's going to be about critical digital pedagogy. Although critical digital pedagogy is a pedagogy, but it's not your regular pedagogy. It's a little unique on its own, and it has different approaches and different aspects to it. So I hope that after this presentation, it will intrigue a lot of you, and you'll be interested to research this topic, because this topic has not been researched much. There's been some research, but not a lot. All right, so we are going to look at how critical digital pedagogy can promote learner autonomy and critical thinking. And I have conducted 2 studies on this so far. And one was by using blogs. So I encourage my student participants in the research to use blogs and write some blog posts. And also then in another study, I explored how drama presentations can be used as critical digital pedagogy. So the drama presentations obviously weren't done in a physical classroom, but it was done online because it happened during this pandemic. So let's move on, and let me share my outline with you for today's presentation. So first of all, obviously, I'm going to start with the background and purpose of conducting these 2 studies. And then I will talk about the origin and definition of critical digital pedagogy. And then a little bit about how critical thinking, learner autonomy, and critical digital pedagogy are interconnected. Then about blogging, how blogging can be used to promote both learner autonomy and critical thinking, and how recorded drama presentations can be used to promote learner autonomy and critical thinking. Then the limitations of critical digital pedagogy, because obviously there are certain limitations there. And then some recommendations from my side. So yeah, let's start. So I want to start with a quote by this wonderful human being. And this is one of my favorite quotes. So he said, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." So obviously we have been changing the world. Our learners, we are also part of obviously changing the world. But the question is how meaningful it is. And as he was a change maker himself, so he changed the world in meaningful ways. He changed the lives of a lot of people. He actually ensured the human rights. He tried his best to, um, you know, address the rights of groups of people whose rights were not being addressed. So when I look at this quote, I can't actually take it out separately and think about it. Obviously, it is by Nelson Mandela, and he had a wonderful life. He was a wonderful change maker. So it makes me think about the deep meaning of this quote. So obviously, education shouldn't only mean, in accomplishing individual goals. There is no problem in that. Obviously, people can use education to accomplish their individual goals, but education have a broader goal, a broader aim, and that is to obviously change the world from our own place and from wherever we are. So this brings me to our educational institutions. So I want to know from you actually, if you can use the chat box to just let me know what types of topics do the institutional textbooks usually contain? Like what types of topics do you usually deal with? Do you assign to your students, or the textbooks have in them? So can you just like share one or two, maybe in one or two words? Let me check if I have received any response. All types of science fiction, someone said. Personal life, which may not be used in real life. Okay. Health issues, environmental issues, socio-emotional learning. Okay, that's interesting. A student-centered textbook. Okay, environment, ecological, subjective and objective, school life, cultures, cultural contents, mental health, and practical issues. All right. Problem solving, culture and values, geography, politics. Okay, politics. All right, that's interesting. Citizenship, astrology, cultural taboos. All right, okay, that's interesting. Many interesting topics that I can see here. Culture, I think, is very common. Someone wrote politics. That's interesting. Philosophy, okay. Religion, okay, religion, yeah, religious studies, yeah, obviously. Motivational essays. All right, okay. I'll stop there. Thank you so much for your responses. Sorry, I went back to my first slide. So let me just I have another question for you actually. So, and that is, now let's talk about what types of activities do we usually assign our, like we usually do in the class, or we assign to our students. So what types of activities can promote, you think, critical thinking, or any of the activities that you already do that you think can promote critical thinking? So can you just give me one or two activities, examples, just like very briefly in one word? Peer review, brainstorming, questioning, role play, someone wrote collaboration, group discussions, debate, comparisons, team quiz, storytelling, problem solution. Okay, that's very interesting. Visual presentation, debate. Okay, very, very interesting. Reflecting, collaborating. Okay, a lot of people are writing debate, think, pair, share. Okay, that's very interesting actually. Speech, drama. Interesting. Referential questions, puzzles, group discussions. Okay, all right. Poem writing. That's very interesting. Involving in activity, opinions, reflective questions, quiz, group discussions. All right. Storytelling. All right. Okay. We are actually going to have have some presentations on how you can promote critical thinking through poems and storytelling. So thank you for all your responses. I can see a lot more responses are coming, but I'll stop there because I have a lot to cover and I have more questions to ask you. So yeah, I mean, I can relate to a lot of your topics, a lot of topics that you shared, because as a teacher, I taught at a school for some time, and then I taught at the university level, and I can see a lot of these topics in our textbooks. And these topics are fine. I mean, I like these topics, all these topics like culture, environmental problems, and everything. These are nice topics, and I have some examples for you. So obviously in Bangladesh as well, we have academic topics, cultures, countries, topics about, like texts about countries or activities about countries. We have about traditions, lifestyles, life lessons, and more, like environmental problems, city problems, wildlife, marine life, historical events, short stories, technology, social media, innovations. Yeah, these are, I think, the common topics. And I mean, these topics are excellent actually for critical thinking. If you give students these topics, they can, and you can give the correct questions, as Bruce said earlier. Obviously, you can get amazing responses, and uh, you can promote the critical thinking, and some of the responses will be, or maybe some of the activities will actually bring out great outputs that students actually constructed by using their critical thinking faculty. However, there are some topics that we usually avoid, um, and these topics actually are not very much seen in the textbooks, or are not usually discussed in the textbooks. And some of them are, not all of them, I haven't listed all of them, but some of them are these. So racial, ethnic, gender discrimination. These topics are, like, thought to be taboo, and sometimes it is thought to be, it will start a debate on a personal level, or sometimes it is thought to be, it's like too serious and too, like, it's taboo. And then intersex and third gender people deprived of basic human rights. This is not discussed much at all in the classroom, as I mean, as far as I have seen. Maybe at some universities and at some schools these are discussed, but this has become a hot topic recently because of the media portrayal. So how the media has portrayed these people, and how these people are not being able to exercise their rights. And also because the government has recently taken some steps to address their human rights. That is also another reason that these people have come to the limelight. So there are other topics like bullying at educational institutions also, although this is like a very common issue at many public institutions, mainly also private institutions, but still it's not talked about. Violence on women and children is thought to be very serious and very uncomfortable. And then religious intolerance is, I haven't seen ever this to be, this being discussed in any class, not in my experience, but maybe in some institutions, but this is obviously less discussed. And then abuse and neglect in asylums, orphanages, care homes, yellow journalism, corruption, improper implementation of law and order, insufficient health facilities for the underprivileged, lack of educational opportunities for underprivileged children, atrocities in wars and the aftermath, refugee crisis, violation of human rights, world hunger, and poverty. So poverty is not talked about. It's not like that's not talked about at all, but these are less discussed, as I have outlined here. So these topics are, like, because they're less discussed, as I earlier said, because they are considered taboo, or too, sometimes they are thought to be uncomfortable topics. These will make students uncomfortable. Maybe they won't be willing to discuss it, or it will create a debate, it will become political and stuff. All right, so this brings me to the background and purpose of both of my studies that I conducted on critical digital pedagogy, because critical digital pedagogy is actually very closely related to uh, this, like what types of topics and what types of issues do you talk about in your classroom. So that is all actually what not that is not all about critical digital pedagogy, but that is a very big part of critical digital pedagogy. So the background of my study was this, that textbooks generally contain socially refined topics, topics that are not maybe not very are about real life, but not very much about oppressions, or not very much about people who are not getting their human rights, and like serious issues that can obviously make you slightly uncomfortable, but can make you think as well. Um, so the because classrooms are controlled by teachers, obviously teachers are the supreme authority in the class, especially in our country. Maybe not so much in not at all in America and or UK or other countries, but in our country still, although we are adopting communicative language teaching method, still we are the depositors of knowledge and our students are depositories. So it's like a banking system. And there are situations or social situations and you know incidents, events that students can relate to in their real life, and they could initiate a critical discussion on. But these are avoided because, as I earlier said, that these are actually considered to be taboo or uncomfortable. So some of these topics are like violence, racial, ethnic, gender discrimination, etc. And you may ask now, one question may be there in your mind, that why language learning is related to this. Because language learning is a holistic experience. If we don't address the totality of our learners situation and position in the society and socioeconomic experiences, it may be difficult to actually help them learn. So language is something that when you are using your language, you don't talk about some of your experiences and ignore other experiences. Language is your life, actually. Whatever you do in your life, you have to convey that in your language. So if some of the parts of your life are not addressed at all, and only the good parts are addressed, then obviously that's a concern. So the purpose of this study was to implement critical digital pedagogy, which is about addressing the totality of our learners' experiences. And it is an approach to teaching that aims at um, empowering learners. So this is a very strong word, very strong, phrase, that we should empower our learners as teachers. We should give them the autonomy and the freedom to talk about their and other social situations. Also, this digital platform, how is internet and technology connected to this? Because we have to, through, like when we do it within the four walls of our classroom, the experience or the discussions or their knowledge, the knowledge that they produce, or the knowledge that we impart, it stays within the four walls of the classroom. But if it is done on a digital platform, it actually reaches a larger audience. So if students write blogs, for example, they are able to not reach only their peers or their teacher. It is an open platform, so they have real audience, real target audience. And it helps them to produce knowledge because they have to engage in critical thinking. When they're writing a blog, they won't be able to, it is not common for them to write anything without research. So when it is a blog, so they already know it is a public platform, and they would automatically want to write better. And this is actually, I'm saying, from the studies that I conducted, from my experience. So it is it actually forces them to engage in critical thinking. Also, it can promote creativity and collaboration. So the creativity part is always there in blogging, but it is like more present in drama presentations, which we will see. Also, it actually kind of promotes collaboration, because when the peers are writing blogs, they actually have to come, if the activity is like this, that they write blogs and their peers have to comment on each other's blogs, and then they will have an online discussion on their writing. It actually promotes collaboration, because obviously there is this thing that I'll give feedback, the peer review, peer evaluation, and then online discussions, taking part in online discussions on the blogs that they have written. Or for example, drama presentation, they have to collaboratively work on their drama. So critical digital pedagogy is something that does not that takes away the authority from the teacher and gives it to the students, so that students can engage in the learning activity by themselves, and teachers are actually parts of it. So the following two studies were conducted using two different techniques of critical digital pedagogy to analyze the potential of promoting learner autonomy and critical thinking skills. And I'm going to discuss these two studies now. But before that, I just want to quote Noam Chomsky, because this I found to be very interesting. So internet, actually, sometimes people, like a lot of people before this pandemic, were actually very, very skeptical about the use of internet, or like not the use of internet, the use of technology, online learning, or like too much technology, or like technology in language teaching and language education. And I remember attending a conference where like people divided in two groups, because they thought that one group did not like online, like not like, they did not think that online resources were important for language education, and then there was another group who thought that it was. So like people had such strong convictions about not wanting to use technology so much in language teaching. But now we are here, we are doing everything online. So this is actually a very nice quote, because internet is actually a very positive thing. It is positive for education, organization, and also participation in a meaningful society. So that is the point, that it is a very positive thing for the society as a whole. So that brings me to critical digital pedagogy, and I want to actually know from you, are you familiar with the terms critical digital pedagogy, or the pedagogy of the oppressed? Because they are quite, related. They're quite interconnected. So critical digital pedagogy, or the pedagogy of the oppressed. I can see a lot of people raising their hands, but I mean, I think we will take questions if, I hope that I'll have some time towards the end. No, someone said yes, someone said, all right, I can see yes. Yes, Paulo Freire, right. Yes, no, yes, not familiar, all right, somewhat, yes, yes, no. All right, so maybe it's like, no, no, I can see a lot of no's. No, please explain, okay, yeah, all right. It's 21st century pedagogy, right. Pedagogy of the oppressed, right, pedagogy of the oppressed, right. Okay, so let's talk about it. So it feels like it's 50-50 actually. Some people do have some ideas and some don't, and which is perfectly normal. I mean, it is a new pedagogy, and it's very, not much talked about. So let's move on. All right. Okay. So what is critical digital pedagogy then? So critical digital pedagogy is, okay. All right. Let me fix this. I think it has, yeah. All right, I'll just share again. All right, so critical digital pedagogy actually originated from critical pedagogy, and critical pedagogy originated from Paulo Freire's pedagogy of oppression. So it first came into existence in 1968, although we are saying that it's 21st century pedagogy, but it actually came into existence in 1968. And it takes the culture of the oppressed into consideration to change the education system for the better. So what it does is that it enables learners to learn more about the world. So it is not like the teacher only shares whatever she or he knows about the world, but it is also about students sharing their experiences of the real world. And when critical digital pedagogy is transformed into the cyberspace or the internet, it is known as critical digital pedagogy. It actually does not only create a scope for students to engage in free discussions, liberating themselves from the restrictions imposed by institutions and the standardized curricula, but it is also it also creates scope for teachers to engage freely in discussions. So it is not our traditional language teaching method. It is rather a method which promotes discussions on both sides. And it helps, because in the internet is an autonomous space, so it creates a platform for educators and learners to exchange their ideas openly. And so as they are sharing it openly on the internet, there is no way to put restrictions on their free flow of knowledge. So because when there is a standardized curricula, we have to stick to it. We have to we have to follow whatever is in the curricula. But with critical digital pedagogy, we have a lot of freedom in terms of what we discuss and how we discuss it. So there is a very deep connection between among critical digital pedagogy, learner autonomy, and critical thinking. So critical thinking, actually, as we all know, critical thinking is a matter of making decisions and solving problems, or learning concepts, the strategies of learning concepts, and of course reflective thinking. Now, critical digital pedagogy actually requires students to engage in discussions about injustices, social issues, oppression. And for this, for engaging in a discussion on all of these topics, students need to use their critical thinking faculty. Not only that, they have to use their metacognitive faculty as well to reach appropriate conclusions. So as we can see that to implement CDP in our classroom, we need our students to use their critical thinking faculty. It can't be done without that. Also, because critical thinking is autonomous, it is an autonomous process. So it is known as autonomous thinking. So it involves stating an individual's position, their experiences, and also assessing different perspectives. So critical thinking can't take place if you are not assessing other perspectives. So it is very important in critical digital pedagogy as well that we consider other situations, and then we negotiate the perspectives, our own perspectives, by accepting others' perspectives. So it is there is an element, as a lot of people were saying, that debate is one activity that can promote critical thinking. So debate is something that is one technique of critical digital pedagogy, because without debate, students, learners can't actually discuss these topics. Now let's move on to blogging. One of the techniques, there are many techniques of using CDP in your classroom, and it depends totally on you. But as critical digital pedagogy is digital, so I use blogging as my first technique of implementing critical digital pedagogy in the classroom. And it was a research study, so it was not the regular classroom. It happened outside the classroom, but in a similar environment, in the similar way. So before I move into that, I want to know from you, have you ever used blogging as an activity for your students? Let's see how many people used blogging as an activity for their students. No, yes, yes, sometimes, no, 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 yes, no, no, no. All right, I think sometimes, all right, that's very nice to see that sometimes people did use blogging with small class. All right, okay. So most of the responses are like no. So yeah, that's interesting, and that's maybe that is maybe a more common response to it. So So blogging is actually very important for critical digital pedagogy, because as critical digital pedagogy requires an open network or an open platform to be implemented. So technology actually provides that platform, and blogging is one of the uh, most empowering platforms, because as I already said, that it actually reaches a wide audience, and students can make their voices heard beyond the classroom, going beyond the classroom. And especially blogging on social issues. When students are blogging about social issues, social problems, or social injustices, they have to analyze the topic. They can write on any random topic and still use their critical thinking faculty. But when they're writing on social issues, they don't have any other way of writing about these issues, because they have to look at these topics through a critical lens, and they have to activate their critical thinking faculty. And as it is, all these are involved, there is a matter of self-expression, expressing their own opinions. Now, learner autonomy and blogging are connected because, blogging is a personal platform, and it is completely, on the students, on how they're expressing their thoughts, ideas, points of views. There is no one way of writing blogs. So it is completely on a learner how they want to approach this. Now, I will show you two blog excerpts. That means I will show you two pieces of blogs, I mean, two parts of two different blog posts. And I want you to guess from these small pieces that which one has more academic words and which one shows more evidence of critical thinking. Now, it is very difficult because you're looking at just a small part, a small portion of the blog post. You're not seeing the whole blog post. But I think it is not that difficult to guess. So you can just have a look at it and then tell me that which one you think has more academic words and more evidence of critical thinking. So it will be, excerpt A and excerpt B. So just let me know which one you think. You can write only A or B. So I will give you 30 seconds. Let's see how fast we can read. B, someone said B. B, all right. B, someone said A. B, second one, more academic. B, A. B, green. All right, okay, yeah, all right, that's interesting. So yeah, so B actually wins in popular votes, but B is actually the correct answer, because if you look at text A, you'll see that there are the names of some places, some famous places, but there are some informal words. Although informal words are there in excerpt B as well, but you can see that the excerpt B is more academic in the way it is written. There is some data, there is like some statistics, reasons are there, but in excerpt A, it is just a personal reflection. So this was basically the critical thinking part was basically analyzed by following this criteria. So these are some criteria that that Washington State University actually determined as the criteria for identifying critical thinking, and these were actually used to analyze the blog post. So does it identify the problem or question? Does it present like the blog? Does the author present own perspective and position? Other perspectives, are they considered? Are assumptions considered? Because about any social issue or injustice, there are like pre-existing assumptions. Are they considered? The quality of supportive data and evidence, are they there? The influence of the context, has it been considered? And conclusion, implication, and consequences, what about that? So all these were not like 100% present in all these writings, but because they are just like learners, and this study was done with students, university students who haven't graduated yet, who are just quite early in their education, university life. So I just looked for the simplest evidence of all this, and these were present in the second blog post because it was about a social issue. I think it was about street children's education. And so all these were present there, but in the first blog post, because it was a reflection, there was no problem, there was no position taken. So all these weren't completely and fully present there. So also academic words in the personal reflection, which is text A, the academic words, the percentage of academic words was 1.45%. And in the second blog post, which was on social issues, the percentage of academic words was 4.42%. So this was actually analyzed through this wonderful website, which is called Complete Lexical Tutor. If you search it on the internet, you'll find it is free. You can just like copy paste your students' writing and you can find it out. I know that the percentage is very low in both of them, but they are students. And also this website is quite strict. It won't give you a lot of marks and it won't say that your percentage is very high if it is not, because there are words like articles, prepositions, so they don't count that. They only count academic words. So yeah, it is a nice one to just very quickly check the presence of academic words. Now I'll go fast, I think now, because I don't have much time. So if you have any questions, please keep that. I can see a lot of people are raising their hands. I'll maybe, if I have time, I'll inshallah address them. So research study on blogging, the research study that I conducted on blogging contained 17 university students, and all of them were Bangladeshi students, and they were from either Bengali or English medium schools. They had the proficiency of upper intermediate or advanced level, and the age range was between 18 to 24. They had none to some experiences of blogging. So the methods that I used to analyze it, I actually told the participants to write 2 blog posts with an interval of 2 weeks in between. And the topics of the first blog post were like random. The students were told to write their first blog posts on any topic they wanted. And the topics of the second blog post were rather a little guided. So they were told to write their blog posts on social injustices. And these blogs were coded and thematic analysis was done. And the evidence of critical thinking, learner autonomy, and academic words were analyzed based on the criteria that you already have seen from the Washington State University rubric. And also it was analyzed through Complete Lexical Tutor, which you also have seen a little while ago. So the first blog post contained topics like personal reflection topics, exploratory topics, social injustices, and social problems. But you can see that there is like the personal reflection topics are more in number, like almost like 50%, not 50%, maybe close to 50%. And then exploratory topics, where there are two students wrote about exploratory topics. And social injustices were like some people, almost like the same amount of people that wrote personal reflection, wrote also the other 50% or 40% maybe wrote about social injustice and social problems, although they weren't told that you have to write on social injustices, but some of them chose it. Now, the second blog posts were entirely written on social injustices and social problems because they were guided, they were instructed to do so. So there's something interesting because students were actually told to write the second blog post on only social injustices. But this is interesting because the students weren't instructed or weren't guided about what are social injustices. So they were like it was like kind of an experiment. I wanted to see whether they can actually identify social injustices or they mix it up with other social problems. So they did it. They mixed it up. Like a lot of people wrote on social injustice, but some people could not identify it, could not differentiate. So they wrote on social problems. Sorry for the typo there. All right. So again, this blog posts were thematically analyzed. You can see how it was color coded and labeled. And these blog posts were then, as I already said, following the Washington State University rubric, the critical thinking was analyzed. Interestingly, on the blogs that were written on random topics, like somewhere around like 64% or 70%, 58% of the writings contained some of the criteria. So which is again like more than 50%, which is again positive. Even though they wrote on random topics, they still had the evidence of critical thinking. And almost some of the criteria, some of the writings had all the criteria and some of the writings did not have all the criteria, but still it is beyond 50%, which is a positive thing. But when they wrote about blogs, when they wrote their blogs on social injustices, the criteria, all these criteria were present in all 17 blog posts. And I know the number looks like quite, strikingly surprising, that 100%, but it was the case because students were instructed to write on social injustices, and they were also told to, assess different perspectives, write their positions. They weren't directly told that these are the criteria of critical thinking, but they were told that when you write your blogs on social injustices, you have to analyze everything about that topic. So they actually did that, and because these were social injustices, some of them weren't comfortable writing just their reflection. So they did go to the internet, search for data, included data in their writing, presented other perspectives, assessed the assess the other salient perspectives, talked about assumptions, and considered the influence of the contextual problems, and then of course there were implications. Now, academic works were also like, it had the highest percentage and the lowest percentages were almost the same on both types of blogs. Like the highest percentage, you can see the numbers are quite the same. But what is interesting here is the average percentage. So on random topics, the average percentage were somewhere between 3.02, that means 3%, and the average percentage for social injustice related blogs were quite high, which is 4.2, although it is not like very high, like there is no significant difference, but still it is a little higher. Okay, now let's move on to recorded drama presentations. I'm not sure about the time. So how much time do I have left? Do I have some time left?
I'm not sure. Probably about another 5 to 10 minutes maximum.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Curtis. So this is actually the last part of my presentation, and we're almost towards the end. So recorded drama presentations were basically, it was a separate study. So recorded drama presentations were kind of an exploratory action research. So it happened in the classroom. It happened during the class, and it was analyzed in the class. So now, very quickly, because we don't have much time, if you can just very quickly tell me, have you ever assigned online or recorded drama presentations as an activity to your students? Not like regular drama presentations, not in the physical classroom, but I'm asking about online or recorded drama presentations. If you can just give me some opinions. No, yes, no, 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 yes. All right, that's very interesting that some people still use drama presentations online. Yes, often. All right, that's very interesting. That's very interesting. All right, so as okay, so as some people have already done it, so it will be actually easier for me to share my experiences. So drama presentations can also, like recorded drama presentations that are like recorded online, can also promote learner autonomy and critical thinking. And how? Because students autonomously take part in transformation. When they're doing a drama presentation, it is kind of a transformation because they're doing role plays and they're writing the script by themselves, and they're like, they're using their own knowledge. They're not using, maybe they're taking data from other sources, but they're not, taking help from anyone else. And virtual platform actually provides students with the opportunity of experimenting with different aspects of drama, and also the opportunity of perfecting their output by bringing changes wherever necessary. So they can experiment and perfect and polish and change and revise. And writing and performing a drama is very important, because when they do it, they are analyzing and understanding the perspectives of others. They are thinking about a situation from different angles. They are engaging in in-depth thinking. about the plot or story development, which is obviously they are engaging in critical thinking, and they're collaborating with their peers in problem solving. So all these are related to learner autonomy and critical thinking. Now, the research study was almost like, not the same, but similar to the previous study. But this time I had more participants. I had 455 to 47 students. They were again Bangladeshi and from Bengali or English medium schools, and but their proficiency level was lower than the previous group. They are like intermediate or lower intermediate. They have intermediate or lower intermediate, lower intermediate level of proficiency. Age range is again a little lower as well, and they had no experiences of doing any presentations or drama presentations before. They started with this course, so they did some the presentations on random topics, and then they started the drama presentation. Now the methods used in this presentation was like, again, 2 presentations were done within 3 to 4 weeks, so there was an interval of 2 weeks in between, and the topics of the first presentations were random, and the second presentations were like because it was a drama presentation, and I actually instructed them to choose either social injustices or social problems. So I actually told them they can choose any, because from my experience I saw that it didn't make much of a difference, because social problems are also important to discuss. And so the evidence of critical thinking again was analyzed through a rubric, and this time it was the rubric by Illinois State University, and the rubric was slightly modified, of course, to match my context. And the scripts of the dramas were also analyzed through thematic analysis for detecting the evidence of critical thinking. Now, these were the random topics. So there were personal reflection, environmental problems, exploratory or social problems. Social injustices were very few. A couple of people chose social injustices like child marriage or women's security. Now, the topics of the online drama presentations, this is the second one. That was the first one, and this is the second presentation. And this time they were again instructed that they have to either choose social injustice or social problems, nothing else. And they worked in a bigger group this time. The previous time they worked in smaller groups, but this time they worked in bigger groups. So there were 7 groups in total. And again, most of the people chose social problems, and only 2 groups actually chose social injustices. So this is how the thematic analysis was done of the drama scripts. And through the evaluation of the first presentation, which was done on random topics, it was seen that everything else was quite okay, like either 50% or 40% of the people got excellent feedback for their presentation, for originality of the content or visual cue. But originality of the content was like only 50% of the people used original contents. Most of the people actually plagiarized, in simple terms, or like tried to plagiarize intelligently. And visual cue, everyone used almost very good visual cues. However, the presence of critical thinking was not very significant, because these were random topics, so like exploratory or personal reflection. So there, in most cases, there was no problem, there was no context, there was other perspectives were not considered, implications were not given. But yeah, most of these used supporting data from the internet and stated their own position. However, in the next presentation, which was the drama presentation on social injustices, people actually used a lot of like critical thinking, and all these criteria of critical thinking were present in 85% of the presentations. Also, although it's not like 100% yet, because some people, again, as I said earlier, some people again plagiarized and took the information from the internet and just copy pasted. So that was the problem. But without that, 85% of the people actually used address the problem in their drama presentation. The problems were contextual. They analyzed others' perspectives. They provided some implications. Supporting evidence were there. They supported own position. And you can see the percentages for every criteria, apart from critical thinking as well, are quite high in comparison to the previous presentation. So here is a very small example. It will take 2 minutes maybe, but I won't play it for 2 minutes because we don't have much time. So it's just like an excerpt from one of the drama presentations. Um, Let me play it. Hope it works.
Okay, can you tell me how are you eligible for this job?
Thank you, sir, for your question. I have good command over language and I have knowledge about technologies as well. Besides, I have been working for 3 years in AB company, so I am familiar with the work, what I will be doing here. So I can easily understand what I am supposed to do here.
That's okay, but do you think you can do this job? I mean, you are a woman after all. Someday you will get married and you have a responsibility or family, new family, I mean. But then you won't be available for doing this job in the future.
But, sir,
As a woman, it's very difficult for you. I don't think we should rely on you.
I have experience.
So what? We need to appoint someone who is young and smart, but you'll only
Right. So this presentation, this drama was actually acted by 4 people, and they were in their different houses. They weren't together because of the pandemic, obviously, and it was very intelligent of them to shoot it in this way. Actually, when I proposed the drama presentation activity to them, I told them to do it online, like we're doing it now, like like live, but they actually proposed this idea to me that we can do it, we can record it and then do it. So I was like quite adamant. I wasn't very happy about this because I thought that everyone would mess up, but they were very creative. They did it in their separate houses, but still pulled it off. And the whole drama was very, very nice, and there were all the criteria of critical thinking present there. So now I can't show the whole thing because we don't have time. So I'm moving fast.
okay.
Oh, all right. Okay. I think I have to. Yeah. So now I want to actually talk about the limitations of this using critical digital pedagogy in our classroom, because obviously it requires stable internet connection and it is not available in every corner of our country. So the enough resources and logistic support is like these are very big issues. And students and teachers general skepticism towards using digital tools. So no matter how much we're using and how much we have become like habituated to doing online classes, still there is a general skepticism, and teachers still like a lot of teachers still depend on lecture based classes because they actually don't want to use so much technology. And then there is this problem of lack of proper training for teachers, teachers' unwillingness to include social injustices. This is the biggest problem actually, because teachers are not very willing to include social injustices as classroom topics because as it is taboo. Now, some of the implications and recommendations are that critical digital pedagogy can obviously promote critical thinking and learner autonomy. But it is better to do it in a blended learning approach. So when the world goes back to normal, maybe if we still want to continue with critical digital pedagogy, it would be nice to integrate digital tools with traditional face-to-face classroom practices. And it requires elaborate planning. It can't be done, very quickly without elaborate planning or just, like impromptu. And it has to be, the digital tools have to be considered and selected by keeping in mind the resources that are available, and teacher training is very important for this. Also, any sort of learning management system like Moodle or Google Classroom, these are very important to keep communication and to maintain everything properly. And social injustice and problems should be discussed. It's like um, as we can see from the research study and both of the research studies, and also it's my personal opinion that I think that this should be discussed. But how often, that depends on individual teachers. Do you want to discuss it every day or like occasionally? That's up to you. All right, so that's all from my side, actually. Thank you so much for hearing me out, and thank you for your patience. I don't think we have time for questions, do we?
We
No,
are
right?
running just on time, so I don't think that today we'll be able to do questions. However, I encourage you all to ask your questions in the question and answers box and put them on Facebook, and maybe Marwa can respond to them there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Marwa. I enjoyed your presentation very much. I do want to just quickly comment on a few things, and then I'll move on to our next presenter. Marwa mentioned that in the classroom, many topics are taboo. I experienced this writing my textbook for Oxford University Press. I was writing it in 2006, 15 years ago. One chapter I proposed, a favorite topic of mine, was on Jane Goodall and her studies of chimpanzees. And I found that students love learning more about animals of various kinds and comparing them to human beings. But again, I was told comparing humans to chimpanzees or contrasting humans to chimpanzees was a taboo topic for some cultures, and it was rejected. Marwa also mentioned that critical thinking can promote creativity. Yeah, there's a fine line between critical thinking and creativity. And ask any writer or artist, he or she will tell you how much they have to think carefully, strategically about the work they're planning, how carefully they might think about the motivations of characters or about the proportions they're going to give to a work of visual art. Marwa mentioned that we've come a long way in internet teaching. I am one of those people who 20 years ago, when I was a younger teacher, thought, oh, I don't see myself being an online teacher. I think when everything goes online, that'll be about time for me to retire. Well, in terms of my age and career status, yeah, it could be my retirement time, but I've actually found online teaching quite enjoyable and interesting. It has some limitations, sure. And in the future, as Marwa suggested, post-COVID, maybe there'll be an interesting blend of the old and the new. But I think as professional teachers, if we're dedicated to our craft, we should be using all the means at our disposal and make the most of it. Finally, I do want to respond to something I saw in the chat room, in the chat box. Marwa was talking about a site called LexTutor, which she used for her research to count the number of words from the academic word list. I thought this was really, really interesting. I love LexTutor. I've used it many times in courses here. But there was a question in the chat box. Is using academic words an essential criterion for establishing the presence of critical thinking? Essential? Maybe not. We all know that some people are gifted with language and can make the most eloquent statement out of the simplest language. But that's actually pretty rare. It's a rare talent. And I think when you see students using more academic words, it just means they're trying to be more exact and precise. And this is what we're hoping for. So thanks again. That was a really, really interesting presentation from Marwa Masood from Bangladesh. Masood, excuse me. Okay, we're going to go on to our next presenter now from Afghanistan.